What's up, everybody? Beebo Baggins here with another video for you. And today we're talking about the destructive nature of live service video games. Whether it's Fortnite, Destiny 2, or World of Warcraft, these games have increasingly become a part of the modern day gaming ecosystem. Pressuring other studios to follow suit, we've been treated to more skins, more battle passes, and more microtransactions than we might have ever thought possible. Their influence has been tremendous and inescapable. But what if that isn't the end of the story? What if there was a driving force of good that was keeping back the Balrog of infinite microtransactions? That's what I'm calling a gaming renaissance. A resurgence of the past, if you will. And importantly, why I don't think it's coming from the United States. To explain what I mean, we need to go back a couple years. You see, I'm what they would call a capital G gamer. I grew up playing single player games because that's basically all there was. Yeah, you had couch co-op with Mario Kart, and the closest thing to live service we had was game expansions like StarCraft Brood War. But everything in that disc was everything you were getting. And for me, it was enough. Games back then leaned on arcade-style retention mechanics. Many didn't have save files or even checkpoints. The SNES didn't even have any internal storage, so it was up to the developers to implement their own solutions. Yeah, I basically never made it past these levels. I guess this is my home now. That's why games like Lion King or Battletoads were notoriously difficult, because they were designed to basically never be beaten. Hakuna Matata my ass! On the flip side, this allowed for proper RPGs to thrive. Pokemon Red and Final Fantasy VII proved that the average consumer could have an attention span longer than 30 seconds and could actually appreciate a deeper experience. Enter the 2000s. Along with tiny phones and skinny jeans, the PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Xbox ushered in a new era of gaming. Games got bigger, levels more expansive, and the controllers, the controllers got huge. Games like Halo, Super Mario Sunshine, Metal Gear Solid all marked huge leaps in fidelity and scope. Developers were realizing their visions in ways never seen before. And it's at this point that I really want to focus, because only a few years later, World of Warcraft was released. MMOs had already been gaining popularity with Sony's EverQuest starting to pop off, but Blizzard Entertainment struck gold with World of Warcraft, which was basically just a better version of EverQuest in every way. Suddenly, every game studio wanted a piece of that MMO pie. Monetizing a game with a monthly subscription was like the holy grail of game development. Up to this point, the video game industry had been growing in a relatively linear fashion since the 1980s, with Nintendo mainly leading the charge. But things changed when we went online. It wasn't overnight, but the infrastructure was laid out with services like Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, and Battle.net. Now, developers had more ways than ever to patch their games after release, and as broadband internet became more accessible, it paved the way to end the physical disc as we know it. This, to me, was the beginning of the end for Western studios, as the expectation shifted towards games as a service instead of delivering actually finished products. All the while, these studios began neglecting the very franchises that built their companies in the first place. With more of these companies becoming publicly traded and receiving massive infusions of capital, there came an insatiable appetite for growth. It was no longer acceptable to just put out new sequels or invest in new IPs. You had to own the whole damn franchise. And with everyone chasing the live service dream, we ended up with release after release of uninspired, half-baked trash from studios that should know better. There's a now infamous quote from Pirate Software, a former Blizzard dev, who said he worked for 2 years of overtime to ship StarCraft II Wings of Liberty, an expansion met with some of the highest recommendations from critics and players alike, only for it to make less money than a single horse mount in World of Warcraft. This right here is why we don't have nice things, because we're only looking at it from a short-term perspective and not how it can boost player trust or how it can help the company in the long term. If you're an investor, you just want the best quarterly report, no matter how bad the games are. And that there lies the problem. Gameplay went from being a priority to a liability. You wouldn't have the golden goose that is World of Warcraft if Blizzard didn't learn the lessons from StarCraft or Warcraft 3. Look at Ubisoft, the once respected Canadian studio with hits like Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six Vegas, Splinter Cell, is now just a husk of its former self because of ridiculous release cadences, prioritizing microtransactions, and chasing trends instead of owning their skill sets. Instead of pushing the envelope with their games like Assassin's Creed 2 and 4, they got complacent and repetitive.
You know what this game needs? More collectibles. Yeah, that's what players want. Games like Assassin's Creed Unity, Star Wars Outlaws, X-Defiant might as well be Assassin's Creed Pool Party Adventures. How could you ever respect the player if you don't even respect yourself? And don't even get me started on their first so-called quadruple A game, a knockoff of itself, somehow a worse version of Black Flag despite a $700 million budget. How is that even possible? These companies have forgotten what made them valuable in the first place, and that's trust from the player base. Trust is a currency, and these studios have been spending every last bit of it for decades. Take Warner Brothers. They tasked Rocksteady, the studio behind the legendary Arkham series Batman games, to make a live service looter shooter. Precisely what part of that sounded like a good idea? That's like asking a figure skater to enter an MMA tournament because they're both in sports. I mean, I've never done this before, and there's millions riding on it. Might as well bet the whole company on it. Congratulations, you just nuked all of your goodwill in one fell swoop. It does seem like Warner Brothers is kind of allergic to making decent decisions, but at least we got Hogwarts Legacy out of it. And let's not forget about BioWare, a studio renowned for their prowess in storytelling that got caught up in the live service hype train. They spent the better part of a decade trying to get Anthem to work. With no clear vision, no real endgame, and a shallow storyline, the game was a flash in the pan before ultimately getting scrapped in 2021. And because of that, they haven't been able to get their footing since then. Dragon Age: The Veilguard failed due to lack of live service elements, end quote.
Nah, that's gotta be rage bait. Nobody would say that. Oh, wait.
Except that's exactly what the CEO of EA had to say during an investor's call. Like, that's the takeaway? Are you serious? Not the bland gameplay, questionable art design, or controversial political topics? Bro is straight up on another planet with this take. And the funny thing is, I'm still not even anti-live service. I'm just anti-betting your entire company on extremely huge gambles that will most likely end up with you firing your most vital talent. Companies are starting out with a monetization model first, and then tacking on gameplay, when it has to be the other way around. These companies want so badly to be Blizzard of old, but the fact is, Blizzard was exceptionally lucky with its timing with WoW's release, and it still had to bet its entire company on a success. Yes, it's possible to win the lottery, but is that really a responsible way of running your company? All the while, smaller studios with drastically reduced budgets are cranking out games like Black Myth Wukong, Armored Core 6, Space Marine 2, Baldur's Gate 3, interesting, compelling, concise games that respect your time and your money. These games don't try to be everything for everyone. They know their audience and they lean into what they're good at.
This is what I mean by a gaming renaissance, because these kinds of games are what reminds me of why I play video games to begin with.
I didn't always play games because they had the most compelling battle pass skins or the most balanced PvP experience. I played them because they were fun. Passionate developers are proving that great games can still be made without endless monetization schemes. Balatro or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, games that couldn't be any more different, are perfect examples of this. A roguelike card game that puts a modern spin on collecting poker hands was the most fun I've had in a long time. I was staring at these cards like I was in an Elden Ring boss fight. No microtransactions, no gimmicky retention mechanics, just a good video game. Meanwhile, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth takes a beloved classic and modernizes it without losing its soul. We're not waiting week to week to see where the story goes. Rebirth delivers a complete experience with polished mechanics, an engaging story, and a dedication of quality that feels increasingly rare in the industry. These games prove that you don't need to chase trends to be successful. By simply focusing on great game design and respecting players, developers can earn trust, loyalty, and financial success without relying on predatory practices. Maybe this is just the fate of publicly traded companies in general. Because this isn't just happening in games. We see the same problems in movies and TV shows. With more and more studios being acquired from the same couple of conglomerates, there's less competition and thus more risk-averse products. And since they can't think of anything new, they have to resort to the same tropes over and over. Bro, you're boring. Just move on.
That's why I was so happy to see Marvel Rivals succeed as much as it did, because it finally forced Overwatch to get off their ass and finally do something.
We need competition. We need more indie studios and less brain-dead corporate overlords. I don't think gaming is dying or anything. I just think Western developers need to wake up to this shifting climate, because if they don't, we're just going to see more and more layoffs. I mean, we still have Rockstar, at least, assuming GTA 6 pops off. I do think there are some developers out there that are doing live service right. In my last video, I went into depth on how Arrowhead has been leading the charge on that front. You can check that out over here if you're interested. I just kind of wanted to rant a little bit on the status of modern gaming, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Am I way off base, or do I just need to get with the times? But thank you so much for watching, and consider liking or subscribing if you made it this far. Otherwise, see you guys in the next one. Love you, bye.